What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 23 of the Downtown Browntown podcast. I am your host, Downtown Brown. Today, we're going to discuss all things Bucks related the last week or so. Going over a little bit of the last four games, Bucks going 2-2 in that stretch, as well as some playoff outlook to potential matchups we could see, and just where my head is at with this team as of today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to touch base first on the game last night. Disappointing loss for the Bucks, falling to the Atlanta Hawks 111 to 104 in Atlanta. Um, it really just came down the fourth quarter. Bucks had, I believe, a 10-point lead going into the fourth. Not really playing extremely well the whole game. They really weren't shooting well, but the Hawks were not shooting well at all. So it was just one of those games that, we were just able to hold the lead for a while there just because, the Hawks weren't really getting hot. I mean, besides Mr. Bogdanovich, who just went off on the Bucks last night and really puts things into perspective. Like, man, if the Bucks had this guy, I mean, we would pretty much be the favorites. I mean, obviously the Nets are a little bit better still, or at least I think they would be. But man, if the Bucks got Bogdanovich as their starting two, which really is the weakest point of the roster right now, especially in terms of the starting lineup, man, I mean, I don't even want to think about it because it just makes me want to cry. So yeah, just one of those games that really came down in the fourth quarter. Atlanta Hawks 8 for 11 from three in the fourth quarter. Really taking advantage of Brook Lopez and pick and rolls was Lou Williams specifically, and Bogdanovich just was hot from three in the fourth, and the Bucks just couldn't close a game once again. Just things that we've seen time and time again, just like that Phoenix Suns game 1 week from today. So 1 week ago from today. So yeah, just it's a tough one, and that's a game that it is the second leg of a back-to-back after the Bucks absolutely walloped the Philadelphia 76ers in Milwaukee 132 to 94. I was at that game, finally saw a win, so that was exciting. But yeah, that's just a game, playing the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young, without Tony Snell, who's been one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league this season, and only the Bucks only missing PJ Tucker. All the starters played. It wasn't one of those games where we were resting multiple starters. So just really disappointing. Giannis definitely came to play, but again, it's just continually seeing the Bucks not be able to close out games in the fourth quarter when they have a respectable lead is just it's got to be concerning, especially when we've seen time and time again when it's just simple things like me that can tell like why is Brook Lopez in this game at the crunch time of the fourth quarter. Like, why don't we throw Bobby Portis in there? Clearly, they're just setting screens on Brook Lopez and trying to get him, involved in pick and roll situations. And what do you know? Lou Williams pulls up for three time and time again. We saw that with Devin Booker when the Bucks lost to the Phoenix Suns in overtime, 128 to 127, 1 week ago from today, as I mentioned before. I mean, obviously that call against PJ Tucker was just a joke, but it happened, and the Bucks should have won that game regardless of that. They should have won it in regulation. Uh, they honestly are probably one of the worst teams at closing the games late in the fourth quarter and also trying to close the game on the last play. Like Giannis had the ball in that game against the Suns and just he drops the ball and like is on the ground trying to pick it up, and we call a timeout with 1 or 2 seconds left and can't even get a shot off. Chris Middleton couldn't get the shot off in time, and what do you know, we lose in overtime. But we saw that same situation in Atlanta last night. It's really disappointing, and it's something that the Bucks don't have a lot of time to clean up. I mean, 12 games left in the regular season. This is a game that we should be winning. We had the lead the whole game and until the crunch time in the fourth quarter when they got hot and we just couldn't make shots and couldn't get anything done. I mean, Giannis had a great game, 31 points, 11 for 17 from the field, 14 boards and 4 assists. I mean, Chris Middleton didn't really get hot until late. I mean, he ended with a good stat line, 23 points, 3 for 5 from three, 9 for 18 from the field, 6 boards and 2 assists. But I mean, he really didn't get a lot of that production until like the game was already over. So it's it's just not what we need from a guy like a Chris Middleton. And again, it was really a game where it seemed like we just lacked energy, and that's really concerning to me for a contending team like the Bucks. We got to be coming out with energy and wanting to win games. Like I just don't understand some of these games we come out and just don't look like we even want to be there. We don't even want to play. And that's led to a lot of disappointing losses this season. Um, I know I've ripped on Thanasis a little bit in the past, but that could be a game where, Thanasis gets more minutes and really provides a spark. He only played 4 minutes last night. But again, especially with PJ Tucker being out as well, he clearly Bud has been going to more of a playoff style rotation, playing about 9 guys, which I definitely want to see in the playoffs. But with a PJ Tucker out, that's a perfect opportunity to get Thanasis some more minutes and provide energy, especially in a game where we looked like we didn't even want to be on the court. So yeah, it's just a tough one. Every time that the Bucks seem to feel like they're going to improve in the Eastern Conference standings, especially this time where they beat the 76ers back-to-back games, and we're only 1 game back of them in the loss column coming into yesterday, and feeling like, man, the Bucks got to be a lock to get the 2 seed at this point at minimum, and they're only 2 games back from Brooklyn and the loss column going prior to yesterday's game against the Hawks. But it's happened so many times this year. It happened when we played the Warriors about a month ago, where it's like you finally feel like the Bucks are gonna just get on that run and get a chance to move up in the standings. And what do you know? A disappointing loss just really sets them back. And at this point, I'm just pretty much accepting that the Bucks will have the 3 seed. They're not gonna move up, and that's really disappointing. I've talked about this numerous times on my podcast that um, the 1 seed would be super important this year because then you could avoid Philadelphia and Brooklyn in the second round, which is huge and is going to give you a really good shot at getting to the Eastern Conference Finals at minimum. And then when you're there, you got a shot. I mean, this Bucks team can beat anyone. We've clearly seen it. So just being able to get it to that Eastern Conference Finals at minimum, it's going to give you a chance to get to the NBA Finals, and that's what we all want as Bucks fans. So I mean, it's going to be clearly a harder road at the 3 seed. Even the 2 seed would be a lot better. You get that home court against what it's looking like to be Philadelphia in the second round. Don't want to get too far ahead, but just generally projecting how the playoffs are going to go. Bucks would be 3 seed playing games 1 and 2 on the road in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a great home team. If they lose those first 2 games, it's going to be tough to come back. I mean, we've seen it happen before. Um, on the other side of the spectrum, where the Bucks are up 2-0. Not going to get down that rabbit hole right now. But again, it's going to be a tough road for the Bucks here in the postseason if we can't improve our playoff standings. And we've had so many games where we just should have won and just couldn't pull it through. That Hawks game and the Suns game, if we would have won both of those, we'd be looking great for at least getting the 2 seed and having a real good shot at the 1 seed, where we play Brooklyn 2 times in the next 8 days. So um, yeah, it just speaks to, lack of energy, not being able to close games, Bud not having the right rotations in at the end of the games. Like why not play Bobby Portis more? That's just he's instant offense in a game where we were not making shots. I mean, we did not shoot well at all. I mean, 28.6% from 3-point line last night. You know, I'm surprised that the Bucks even really had a chance to win that game shooting that poorly. I mean, 48% from the field, not bad, but that 3-point percentage is really, really bad for the Bucks team. Only making 8 threes in the game. I mean, you're not going to win many games in this modern day NBA with only 8 3-pointers. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to swallow. It really is. I was extremely frustrated last night after that disappointing loss, and um, it's gonna take a lot for the Bucks to get to where we want them to get to. I think they can do it. I think they can beat anyone. We got a great opportunity against the Brooklyn Nets. We play them this coming Sunday, and the not this Tuesday, not tomorrow Tuesday, but the following Tuesday in Milwaukee. So going to give us a huge opportunity to pick up 2 big wins. And if they can win those, then they've got a shot to maybe improve to the 2 seed. I think the 1 seed could be out of reach at this point. But again, Brooklyn is in that 1 seed, so if we do beat them twice, we certainly have a possibility of getting there. But I don't think the Bucks have any chance whatsoever at getting that 1 seed unless they sweep Brooklyn in those 2 games coming up. So yeah, just that's where we're at after that Atlanta Hawks game. One thing that's definitely trending a bit on Twitter and just in all of the Bucks world in general is Dante DiVincenzo. He's been extremely disappointing as of late, and he was one of the players that really broke down for the Bucks in that crunch time of the fourth quarter last night. And we're going to talk about that, and if I think that Dante should be starting going forward, if maybe we should try someone else, or just the overall outlook of the Dante DiVincenzo experience, which has been an absolute roller coaster this year. Not going to find as many Dante as big of Dante fans as I am, but it's been tough right as of late. So let's get into that right away. I'm not even going to really look at the stats as much with Dante last night. It's just really it's in the film. It's how he played late in the fourth quarter, specifically on defense, which might surprise some because he's generally known as a pretty good defender in this league. But let's get into it. We'll start with the stats right away. 30 minutes for Dante last night, 2 for 7 from the field, 0 for 3 up from 3, finished with 5 points, 6 boards, 0 assists, a steal, and a block. Minus 18 plus or minus. So that means in the Dante DiVincenzo minutes, the Bucks lost by 18 points. That stat can definitely be skewed a little bit just based on how the other team's playing on offense. It doesn't necessarily get tied to that one specific player because there's obviously 4 other players on the court with Dante. So plus minus isn't always the best way to look at how a player played, but it definitely can put things into perspective a little bit. So really what the problem was with Dante last night was his defense late in that game, over helping when guys like Bogdanovich were driving or Lou Williams were driving and trying to make plays for other guys, over helping when he did not need to overhelp. That's something that the Bucks do quite often, and I just don't get it. I don't know why they feel like they need to overhelp and leave wide open shooters in the corners or on the elbows and let them knock them down. I mean, clearly we've seen time and time again that this Bucks team gives up easy looks from the 3 at will, and you're going to lose a lot of games when that happens. So Dante specifically sometimes just likes to prowl on defense a little bit, try and go into the paint at times, leave his guy open, and then all of a sudden someone will pass it to his guy in the corner, and bam, there's a wide open 3-pointer. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, I get you're trying to get steals and stuff, but you got to stay on your guy, especially if he's a lethal or even a pretty good 3-point shooter, like a Lou Williams or a Bogdanovich last night. So I mean, to me, that was the main issue with him, is he was just lost on defense. And you know, this is where Dante gets his credit on the defensive end, is he is a great off-ball defender. Getting steals, getting his hand in passing lanes, forcing turnovers, all that sort of stuff. He has really good instincts in terms of just being able to track the ball and get it out of people's hands and get and go into transition. But on the ball, he's not the best defender, really. I mean, yeah, he has some generally quick feet, but he gets burned a lot, and we clearly saw that last night. And that combined with him just over helping a lot was really a big downfall for the Bucks last night. I mean, that was one. Obviously, I mentioned earlier with Brook Lopez being taken advantage of in pick and roll situations, specifically by Lou Williams, where someone was setting a screen on Brook Lopez, and Lou Williams would, or whoever Brook Lopez was guarding, would set a screen on whoever was guarding Lou Williams, and Lou Williams would just hit that 3 right at the top of the key. We saw that a lot from a Kyle Lowry in that 2019 Raptors series, hitting that 3 because, they're not playing as much drop coverage as they did in the past, but Brook Lopez struggles to get to that shooter in those pick and roll situations at the 3, and Lou Williams was knocking them down at will, and that was definitely just a major problem for the Bucks last night. I mean, why not play a Bobby Portis in that position. I mean, Bobby Portis has switched pretty well on defense. We could have had a lineup with Drew, Dante, Chris, Giannis, and Portis that's a completely 1 through 5 switching lineup. We wouldn't have those problems like we had with Lou Williams taking advantage of Brook Lopez in the pick and roll. Maybe you would have, forced or not allowed Dante to overhelp on defense. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But again, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, we didn't need Brook Lopez in that situation. Giannis can easily guard Clint Capella, and Clint Capella has no offense besides dunking. That's all he does. So Giannis, he would be in his best role on defense, where he's kind of that main helper. He's lurking around, helping when we actually need help versus Dante over helping when we don't need help. Being that main shot blocker, all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's a perfect lineup for a team again, like the Atlanta Hawks, who generally play more small ball. Clint Capella is a smaller center, right around 6'10". But again, why not play Bobby Portis? We know his offense is elite, and in a game where we shot terribly from three and just didn't play well on offense at all, Bobby Portis would have been way more valuable than Brook Lopez, who, I mean, his offense was okay, 11 points, 4 for 9 from the field, 1 for 4 from three, but he tends to take a lot of bad shots, early shot clock threes, deep ones at that. And I just don't think he was the one that should be closing those games. And really, unless we're talking Philadelphia, which he played absolutely outstanding against Joel Embiid, that first Philadelphia 76ers game that the Bucks won by 7, but that was definitely a much more convincing win. It's just the bench kind of gave up the lead a little bit at the end there. But Brook Lopez clearly showed that he can come to play against a really elite center like a Joel Embiid, where we really need his physical presence to slow him down, and he played absolutely outstanding. But other than that, Brook Lopez should not be closing games for this Bucks team. It should be PJ Tucker instead of him, unless you know, like PJ Tucker was out last night, then you throw Bobby Portis in there. But again, with Dante, he might have lost his chance to close out games because it has just not been getting it done for this Bucks team. And especially when he's not really giving you anything on the offensive end, which as of late he's been pretty rough shooting the ball, taking deep threes, early shot clock threes like Brook Lopez as well, and just not being able to finish at the rim. Like, Dante can definitely get to the rim at times, and he had a really nice drive in that game and just missed a super easy layup. Like, that's Dante right there. That's just who he is. And it's incredibly frustrating, and it's really bringing this team down, in my opinion. So again, that's kind of where I saw this game break down. I think Drew Holiday should definitely be called out as well. His defense was not at the level that it usually is. He was getting caught over helping as well, and just kind of sagging off Bogdanovich at times, and getting and he got caught on that, where they would pass it to Bogdanovich and Drew couldn't quite get there to contest the three. And what do you know? Bogdanovich knocked him down. I mean, he was just outstanding for the Hawks last night. 32 points, 6 for 11 from three. I mean, you can't leave him. You got to stay on Bogdanovich at all times. Clearly, Bud wanted him to guard him because he's their best offensive player when Trae Young's not on the court. And, Drew got caught over helping and just sagging off him a little too much. So the combination of Drew, Brook Lopez, and Dante last night on defense was the reason that the Bucks lost that game. So now that I've just kind of discussed over general downfall of that game last night, let's talk about Dante a little bit more. So the big question right now is, did Dante lose his starting position, or should he lose his starting position in favor of someone else? And my answer to that is yes. I think that we should try something else. I don't think it would hurt. Dante still has a role on this team. He will still be in the playoff rotation, but I'm really curious to see what Bryn Forbes could do in the starting lineup. Now, he had an awful game last night, 0 for 0 for 5 from the field and 0 for 4 from 3. When he's not giving you any offense, it's pretty much not even worth having him on the court. But we all know that Bryn Forbes has been extremely consistent this season, And he's going to, shooters have off games. Steph Curry has off games. Kevin Durant have off games. It happens, so Bryn Forbes clearly just couldn't get shots to fall down last night, and that's okay. Dante is definitely not at the level of Bryn Forbes from a shooting or even offensive perspective in general. So, I mean, we all have seen what Bryn Forbes can do in the starting lineup. I'm really blanking on what game he started. Oh, I think it was it was against the Memphis Grizzlies a little over a week ago. I was at that game. Dante was out with that toe injury, and Bryn Forbes started, and he looked great. 19 points in that game, just really fitting in with the starters. Bryn Forbes is a guy that you've got to, if you're defending him, you got to stay on him. You got to keep an eye on him. Dante, teams can sag off of him a little bit. They're not as concerned. If Dante makes a shot, they're going to live with that. But Bryn Forbes clearly has to be in the game plan for teams, and that's one of the reasons why I think they should give him a chance to play in the starting two guard spot for the Bucks. I mean, are we going to lose some some of Dante's defensive abilities, and will that ultimately bring us down a little bit on defense? Yeah, it probably will, but I think Bryn Forbes' offense is clearly going to offset that, and I just think that he could be a great fit for this team in the starting lineup, being a lockdown shooter. Another option for Giannis, Chris, and Drew to find when they're driving in the lane and get doubled and kick it out to an open Bryn Forbes. And he's also got a really good pump fake drive and little mid-range shot and even little floater shot game. So I really think that it's time to give Bryn Forbes a chance to start for this team and see what he can do. Now, do I think that they're going to? I'd be surprised. Bud doesn't seem to do that kind of stuff, this late in the season, getting that close to playoffs. I know he likes Dante and probably will keep him in that starting rotation just because that's what we've done all year. But I really think it's time to give Bryn Forbes the chance. And it's not only that, it's really closing lineups as well. I've always said that in the playoffs, I want our closing lineup, unless it's the Philadelphia, I want it to be Drew, Dante, Chris, PJ Tucker, and Giannis. But honestly, I'm kind of changing my mind now and thinking, a lineup of Drew, Chris, PJ Tucker, Giannis, and Bobby Portis could be the best closing lineup that we have. I mean, especially from an offensive perspective. I mean, again, defensively, that's a 1-5 switching lineup. I think Bobby Portis could get taken advantage a little bit at times on the defensive end. I think he moves his feet pretty well for a guy of his size. But again, he's just such an elite player on offense and is a player that, teams cannot leave open or he's going to knock down shots. So to me, that probably is the best closing lineup that we have at this point. I just think that Dante tries to do too much. And I've said this before on previous episodes that he just needs to play in his role on the offense and not try to do too much. But that's just hasn't changed. And he's been doing too much, trying to create for himself, has that Eric Bledsoe syndrome at times where he bull rushes in the lane and then doesn't know what to do, forces up a bad shot or creates a turnover by trying to make a pass to someone when he's already up in the air. And defensively, he's just been lost and over helping, losing his assignment, that sort of stuff. I mean, he rebounds really well, and I still think his off-ball defense is very good and can sometimes force really key turnovers for the Bucks and get them easy transition baskets. But I really think that his negatives are starting to outweigh the positives. And if he doesn't knock down shots like he hasn't been lately, I think that we've got to switch it up, especially in that closing lineup, which is more important to me than the starting lineup. I'd much rather see a change in the closing lineup, like putting a Bobby Portis in versus a Dante DiVincenzo. So it's a big trending topic right now. And again, just to sum up my stance on it, I think the Bucks should switch up their starting rotation, going with Bryn Forbes instead of Dante. Dante's still having a role. I don't think he should be playing 30 minutes a game like he did last night. Somewhere around that 15 to 20 minutes per game would probably be good for me. And then I think he's lost his spot in the closing rotation. So it hurts me to say it. I've been a big Dante fan ever since he's been on the Bucks. I still am. I really hope he turns it around, but it's just been ugly lately, and I think the Bucks got to make a change now with still 12 games in the regular season, still time to correct some things and hopefully playing their best basketball going into the playoffs. So that's my stance on Dante DiVincenzo, and really, like I said before, seems like the Bucks are probably going to be locked into that 3 seed. Let's kind of talk about a little bit the playoff projections, who we could be matching up against. So as of today, the Bucks in the 3 seed would be playing the Boston Celtics in the first round, which, gosh, that's a tough first round draw. Boston's got a lot of offensive skill players like a Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart. I mean, that's not who you want to match up against the first round. They really do play well against the Bucks as well. I still think the Bucks would win that series, but man, that's a really tough draw. And also tied with them at the 7 seed is the Miami Heat. So obviously the Miami Heat would have to be in that play-in tournament and could potentially fall to the 8 seed or even out of the playoffs. But right now, looks like it's going to be a really tough road for the Bucks to get to the finals. I mean, we could still see these standings shift around a bit. Like we could potentially play, the Charlotte Hornets in the first round, the Atlanta Hawks in the first round, maybe even the New York Knicks, who have won 9 games in a row. I think that'd be a tough matchup as well. But right now, it's looking like the Bucks are going to face off against an elite team, and the Celtics are not an elite team, but a very solid team in the Celtics and the Heat. But we're really hoping for, the Hawks, Hornets, or even the Knicks. And then after that, it's probably going to be a Philadelphia in the second round, and then Brooklyn in the conference finals. And then obviously we'd see what happens if they'd make the NBA finals. Not even going to really think about that because it's a hard enough road to get through the East. But, I definitely think that the Bucks can make the finals. I still think that. I think they can beat anyone. They're just not consistent right now, and I'm really hoping that things change come playoff time. Bud solidifies those rotations, gets the right closing lineup in there, plays the players who are playing well versus giving guys like a Dante 30 minutes in a game where he's clearly bringing the Bucks down. I mean, Bud's just got to figure some stuff out, and this is a huge playoff run for him. Do or die, in my opinion. I think if we fall in the second round, regardless of who we play, I think Bud's getting fired. I think he could still even get fired if we have a really disappointing conference finals, like if we got swept and didn't really even look good at all. I think that he could get fired as well. But given that's going to be a pretty tough road to the finals for the Bucks, also it could be absolutely legendary if the Bucks do make a big run to the finals. Let's say they have to go through Boston in the first round, Philly in the second round, Brooklyn in the conference finals. If they can do that, wow, is that really just going to provide some confidence for this team and just would be one of those runs that everyone in the league would remember years after, beating 3 very, very good teams, the best team in the league in the Brooklyn Nets on the road to the finals. And especially if they would win the finals, I mean, you're talking about just an absolute historic run for the Bucks. It would be their first title in 50 years. So the Bucks have a huge opportunity to really make history for themselves, and I think they can do it. But as we're looking at it today, it's going to be tough. But can't wait to see what happens. Little preview of what's to come for the Bucks this week. The Bucks face off in Charlotte tomorrow night, off on Wednesday. Then we are in Houston Thursday, and then following a back-to-back in Chicago on Friday, and then we play Brooklyn Sunday in Milwaukee, and that following Tuesday in Milwaukee. So Bucks got 3 more games on the road here, and then they're going to be home for a lot of the rest of the season. Lots of home games in May to close out the season. Again, 12 games remaining. The Bucks are 3.5 back from the Brooklyn Nets, 3 back in the loss column, and they are 1 or 2 games back from the 76ers of that 2 seed, and 2 games back from the loss column as well. It's also important to note that the Bucks do have the tiebreaker over the 76ers. So if they finish with the same record, the Bucks would be over them in the standings because we swept them 3-0 this season. So that's definitely a good thing for the Bucks coming down the stretch. So hopefully we can get to that 2 seed. But just after disappointing loss after disappointing loss, when you really think that they're going to finally break through and increase their spot in the standings, I just think I'm expecting them to be in the 3 seed. And honestly, it seems like they're pretty content with that too. I expect the Bucks to rest starters in some of these closing games of the season. I think they could potentially rest starters in that Houston Rockets game on Thursday because the Rockets absolutely stink and they should win that game, even if we're playing more of our bench guys. And then, we'd probably expect more of our starters to play in that Chicago game. But again, I think that's where the Bucks are going to end up, 3 in the East, and going to be a really good opportunity for them to make a historic run on their quest to winning an NBA championship. So that's going to be it today for the Downtown Browntown podcast. Again, if you enjoyed it, please like this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date on all my future content as it is posted. And also make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well. Twitter, I'm at downtown_Brown. And on Instagram, I'm at downtown_Brown33. Can't thank you guys enough again for watching, and go Bucks.